Good afternoon, or good morning, good night, wherever you are. Welcome to our latest State of the Market video. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, but we've had a lot of clients asking us to do these when we're going to do it again. And so we made sure to get one on the calendar as soon as we can after the last few coin shows that we've attended, and people kept asking us for these. We're doing this under a slightly different format without a moderator, but my hope is that we can do this with some more regularity in the future and, share our insights in the market and sort of how we're responding to changes and what we're doing to continue to develop our business and the market overall. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, so 2021 for us was a pretty crazy year across the board for collectibles. It was very active. We saw pretty amazing increases in prices, and what we're seeing more recently, and less so in coins than other categories, but we've seen a sort of return to normal. During this period of 2020, 2021, we saw some prices, and especially for regular, what we see like regular coins, things that we see often jump up quite a bit. And now we're seeing those correct 10, 20, 30%. But at the same time, the big trophies, the big quality items, big type coins are as strong as they've ever been. We continue to break records for types and across countries. We're quite excited for 22 and what's ahead.
Yeah. So we'll get into more specifics later on, but I'd say my observations of the market overall are the same as Chris's, which is there was a huge increase in pricing across the board in 2020 and 2021, and things are starting to return to some level of normalcy. But that being said, on a lot of things, if you compare to where they were 3 or 4 years ago, they're still higher than where they were. So, what I would encourage people to look at, and I check the message boards and online groups and things like that to see what people are saying. And I think in a lot of collectibles, people have a very short-term memory where they're seeing stuff sell for much less than it was 6 months or a year ago. But if you step further back and look at the longer time horizon of 5, 10, or 20 years, there's still a very steady growth on most collectibles, especially for world and ancient coins. So yeah, there was a peak in 2021 and it's come back down, but prices are still much higher than where they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. And we'll get into some specifics later.
Correct. Another thing that I'll mention, I think that added to that is the strength of the dollar, the U.S. dollar. The fact that we have a growing international market, growing global market, buyers from outside the United States, and in places like Japan, where they had their currency, the yen, devalue basically 20-25% in the short term. It made it more difficult for them to compete, and that could also be said, for the English and the Europeans for that matter. But at the same time, that creates it's a great opportunity for consignment, where people now are looking to us to sell more of their coins and more of their inventories or more of their collections in the U.S. Because they know they're going to have that extra gain in the exchange alone.
Yeah, the dollar is at a 30-year high or more in some cases. And, for the longest time, things were very steady against the pound and the euro and the yen. And then all of a sudden, in the last less than 6 months, there's been a drastic change in the dollar. And it's certainly impacting the way people participate in the market. And, it's great when I hear and talk to people overseas and they say specifically that they want to consign because they know they're going to get that much more back in yen, an extra 20% than what they would otherwise if they sell in the U.S.
And Sam, we're seeing interest in new areas of numismatics. And why don't you speak a little bit about our modern coin showcase monthly auctions that we have now in the whole area of modern numismatics, and that's becoming more and more important to us.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure whether I would say that there is new interest in modern numismatics or it's something that we are just starting to pay more attention to. Because I think for a long time there was a lot of collectors for that, but there wasn't really a response from dealers or auction houses. What I mean is that there were not that many, what we would consider professional dealers or auction houses who would take modern coins seriously. They were kind of an afterthought, and we can get into some specifics later, but what we realized over the past couple of years is that there is a very vibrant and serious community that collects these things, and it's a great entry point for new collectors. So what we decided to do about a year ago was to create a dedicated venue just for modern coins. And I see we have one question here. What year do you consider to be modern in terms of modern coins? We sort of had some discussions about that. At first, we were considering it anything 1960 to present. And then I think we changed a few months ago to decide anything post-World War II is more or less modern by our estimation. And most of that tends to be sort of commemoratives or proofs or other things like that rather than actual circulation coins. But there is some gray area there. But I think it's great that we're sort of responding to that area of the market and sort of taking it more seriously. Because when you look around the marketplace, there aren't that many dealers or auction houses that sell modern coins in sort of a dedicated, serious venue. They're kind of an afterthought. They're put at the end of whatever section the other coins go in. And they just seem a little out of place and very spread out. So I'm very happy with that venue, and I think this year we're on track to sell something like $3 or $4 million in the modern showcases, and next year it should be significantly more. And I just love to see all the new collectors that are coming into it through that venue.
Excellent. Should we talk a little bit about
the
3101, or should we talk about the numbers? What do you think?
How about the overall numbers a little
Sure.
bit? So I think we said this in the last day of the market in February that we did, which is 2021 was by far the best year ever for us and for a lot of other world and ancient coin companies. We sold as a department over $131 million through auction of world and ancient coins, which is more world and ancient coins sold at auction by any other auction company ever anywhere in the world. So that's sort of a banner year. Unfortunately, we are not going to pass those numbers this year. But as I think a lot of our viewers know, our numbers last year were heavily skewed by the Paramount collection. So the Paramount collection was this once in a lifetime collection that came up. It was just 750 coins, I think it was, that wound up realizing $42 million, which certainly skews the numbers pretty significantly. So I think it's useful to look at them if you control for that, if you take that out, because I think that will then get at the health of the market if you don't have those numbers skewing it. And so if you take that $42 million sale out, then we sold something like, $89 million
Thereabouts,
last year. And so we're actually on track to beat those numbers this year, which I think does speak to the health of the market. So while prices might not be quite as much on individual coins as they were last year, there's still a significant amount of money being spent in the market. So there's a couple of different ways I think you can talk about the health of the market. You can look at the prices on individual coins, or you can look at the overall amount of money that's being turned over and spent into the market. And so if you look at it from that latter perspective, it seems like the market is still chugging along just as well as we could hope, all things considered.
And we look at all kinds of metrics when we're reviewing these auctions. You know, the amount of bidding that happens, the amount of action that takes place pre and during the auction. I mean, all those things are important, and oftentimes are more important than price, which it can be quite subjective. But the one thing that I was reviewing, because last year we sold just about 43,000 lots,
Mhm.
and I think it speaks to the efficiency and also for to the demand that we have recently from our audience, our collectors, to reach these markets. Like, are we going to sell more than 50,000 lots this year, or what do you think?
Yeah, so we've got 2 months left. We're still got a few consignment deadlines left to build the
Okay.
rest of the year, so we'll see how we end up. But it looks like so last year we sold like 43,600 lots.
Okay.
What I looked up last night. This year we're already over 41,500, and it looks like we'll end up close to 48,000 or thereabouts by the end of the year. So in terms of those sort of overall numbers, we're going to sell about 10% more than we did last year, both in terms of number of lots sold and the overall dollar turnover, if you control for Paramount, if you don't factor that one collection into the equation. So
Yeah.
we'll see how the next 2 months go, but it seems like things are progressing pretty nicely this year.
Yeah, and it speaks to what we've been able to build, the team has been able to build as far as efficiencies to be
Mhm.
able to, meet all the demand that we have from consignments these days, and we have systems and in place and databases that provide information and give comfort to bidders out there, to collectors everywhere in the globe, wherever they are, to bid comfortably, aggressively, and they know exactly what they're getting with third-party grading and all the wonderful data that we have there available. So should we go into 3101, which starts tomorrow?
Now,
Excuse
3101
me.
was in August. That was the last big event.
3102.
Yeah, 3102 starts tomorrow,
Yes.
which we can certainly get into. But I guess to sort of
keep it
keep it in chronological
order. I meant, let's review then our A&A auction in August that just closed a couple months ago.
Yeah. Just 5-6 weeks ago, we had the A&A auction, which is usually one of our banner sales throughout the year. We've changed things around a little bit with the format. So prior to the pandemic, what we would have is a platinum session at A&A and a signature auction at Long Beach, and they were a month apart, sometimes less than a month apart. And one thing that we were able to do during 2020 and 2021, when COVID-19 kind of threw the typical schedule out the window, all the shows were canceled, we could reevaluate our schedule and make it so that it would fit our consignment deadlines and our workflow better, and not have to build them around the coin shows. So we got rid of the September Long Beach auction, and basically rolled it into the A&A auction. But what we also did was move the A&A auction away from the actual convention. So we have lot viewing at the A&A show, and then the actual auction a week afterwards.
Which seems to be the format that most coin auctions will be, at least in this country, going
Yeah,
forward.
I think most people are moving in that direction, and the response that we had from clients was pretty much universally
positive. Yes.
Yeah, from consigners, buyers, dealers, everyone was much happier that they didn't have to jump around between the floor and the auction room and miss a bid here and there. So we made that big schedule adjustment, and what that also enabled us to do is add a new venue to our calendar in late October, early November, which is 3102, which is the auction this week, which we'll get to in a moment. So one thing that I think the A&A auction illustrates, 3101, that we had this past August, is that prior to the pandemic, we had a tendency to, or at least I felt like we had a tendency to make the auctions as big as possible. And then over the past 2 years, we have kind of shifted in the other direction pretty dramatically to try and make the auctions as small as possible. So what that means is raising our value thresholds, adding new venues to the calendar, adding more showcase auctions to the calendar. So to put that in perspective, I looked up the numbers yesterday. So in 2019, between the August A&A and September Long Beach auction, which were sort of two sides of the same coin, no pun intended, those two auctions had 4,415 lots. And then this past August A&A auction had 2,341 lots, so nearly half the size of what the auction would have been in 2019, just by our own efforts to raise the value minimums and move stuff into other venues. And I think that's something that was also pretty much universally received positive praise from our clients, because trying to navigate a 4,500 lot sale is just not easy to do as a professional or as a collector. And I think people prefer those smaller sales.
For sure. So we had 3 special sales, standalone catalogs in the A&A event. Cape Coral was a wonderful collection that we continue to sell, and we'll sell the third part coming up in January.
The second part.
Second part.
Yeah. Part 2 of Cape Coral German is January. Part 3 is next August.
See, I lose track of these things. But anyways, we continue to sell the wonderful collection, Cape Coral, incredible quality. Like anyone that have seen these coins are just beautifully toned. Just the best of the best that you can find in German thalers. So we sold that, and we'll continue to sell it. Then we sold Historical Scholar. Do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, the Historical Scholar collection, I would kind of describe as an academic collection. It had a lot of very rare and interesting pieces, not necessarily the best quality coins, but certainly a lot of value in aggregate. But there were a lot of just historically interesting or rare types that you don't encounter all that often. And so we pulled out the best, I think it was 200 coins or so, for a standalone session in August as part of that auction. And then we also pulled out 4 other showcase auctions from that collection. We've sold 2 of them so far. We have a third one that will be opening, I think, this Sunday, and then a 4th one that'll be sold in a couple of months. And then more coins spread throughout the weekly select auctions.
See, the main reason I get confused with all these auctions is in 2008, when I joined Heritage, we had 3 auctions a year. 3. 1, 2, 3. And we also sold Petropolis, which was it's quite an important collection of Brazilian gold, over 600 different coins. We'll be selling it in 3 parts. The second part is tomorrow. The first part was the Colonial up to King John V. Again, similar to Historical Scholar, this collector was quite adamant about completing date runs, and he did so quite effectively. Some wonderful, beautiful coins, some coins not so wonderful, so beautiful, but certainly quite a broad. And part 2, which we will sell tomorrow, starting at noon Central Time, is higher quality than the first part. And then the third part, which will be in New York, the New York International in January, is even higher quality, which will include the Empire and the Republic. So be on the lookout for that. So you want to talk about a couple of specific results?
So I think people are probably interested to see where the market actually is going. And I think the first result that I had pulled up is the Oona and the Lion that we had in the August auction. So this is a great coin. I think this is a great bellwether for the market because it's such a popular type that's collected by people all over the world. And so this was a 63 Ultra Cameo that we sold for $372,000. And so as I was saying earlier in this talk, the way I'm thinking about the market is that things have come back from where they were last year, but they're still much higher than where they were, 5 or 10 years ago. So Tommy, if you can scroll down on this page to the previous prices grid. Yeah, stop there. So you can see sort of, I love the previous prices grid we have on the website because it makes these conversations so easy. The Oona, in terms of our sales, peaked in March of 2021, where we had another 63 Ultra Cameo sell for $456,000. That was part of the Paramount collection that we sold last year. But compare that to the result from January 2014, where we had another 63 Ultra Cameo sell for $141,000. So yeah, the market.
And if you keep going back a little further, you will find results. I mean, you don't have to do this, Tommy, but I remember when we were selling these coins exactly in this grade for about 50,000, just about 10 to 12 years ago. So the trend is clear.
Yeah, it's come down a little bit from where it was last year, but if you bought this coin 5 or 10 years ago, you should be pretty happy with where the market is on it. And then in terms of ancients, there's another coin that I wanted to show that sort of illustrates another point beyond this, which is that there are still some areas of the market that are just continuing a steady march forward in terms of price. So if you can go to that Alexander Stater, Tommy, that was in that same auction in Choice Mint State Star, 5.5 fine style. So that's, that coin. This is a type that kind of blows my mind how much interest there is around the world. But I guess if there was ever a coin that everyone would want an example of, it's an Alexander the Great Stater. So this is an area that we haven't seen any dip in prices. And actually, this is, I'm pretty sure, a world record price for the type. I need to double check that, but I would be surprised if there was another Alexander Stater.
Let's scroll down and see what's down there.
Let's see the previous prices grid, what we have there. That's just going to move up. It's going to take a moment to load.
I think it's still loading, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is, yeah.
So you'll see that we had a similarly graded coin in August 2019 at the very bottom of that grid. Choice Mint State Star, fine style, sell for just under $17,000. And so in the past 3.5 years, it's basically tripled in price. And if you go back further, I mean, NGC hasn't been around that long, but you're going to find similarly graded coins selling for under $10,000. But what you'll see here, especially in this previous prices grid, is there's a lot of demand for this coin in high grade. It's not like there's one outlier result. There's a lot of people in the market who want this coin and they want it in top condition. So that's something that I'm a little surprised by, but not too surprised, where high grade coins of Alexander the Great just continue to increase in price, and that's just one area that the kind of dip that we've seen in other areas of the market isn't apparent.
Okay. All right.
So October.
Move on to 3102, the one I want to
November.
talk about.
Yeah.
Which now is November.
Yeah.
Originally it was October, now it's November, but it starts tomorrow and it goes through the 4th. We have about 2,100 lots or so being offered, A to Z. But we'll kick off tomorrow at noon Central Time with the Petropolis Collection Part 2. So there's about 220 coins or so there. And then at 5 p.m., I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, CT Central Time, we'll start our Platinum Night, which will have how many lots?
About 200 lots.
About 200 lots. From A to Z, there's wonderful collector coins in there.
There's a lot of good 5-figure coins, not that many coins in the 6-figure range, but still a lot of really just good, what you said, collector coins in that sale. And I think it'll be a good gauge for where the market is. It's going to be a smaller auction in terms of number of lots and overall value compared to August or what the January sale is going to be. But, I love this new venue that we've added in the fall because it's much smaller. It's, I don't know, maybe intimate is the word you could use.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. I, particularly love the focus of in this range that is more say affordable to most collectors. And I keep thinking there's an Argentina Rosas Ada Scudos in there that it's going to get close to 5. It could get close to 5 to 6 figures. I mean, it's a wonderful high grade, incredibly rare coin. So there's a lot of things to find. Please go after this talk and browse some of those lots. We're less than 24 hours away, or just about 24 hours away from the start. So, and again, it will be another great barometer for the market. Will give us idea across, because we have coins, from A to Z, to see what the state of the market is and how things are shaping up. But from what we've seen so far, and I like to track these things pretty closely, the market is just fine. The bids keep coming in and the activity keeps growing as the clock ticks down to the start of the sale. So
Yeah. All right. So maybe we talk about the Chinese market for a little bit.
sure, we were hoping to go to Hong Kong this year. It looks like we won't be able to. Unfortunately, they still have a couple of COVID testing requirements that will prevent us from attending. But we are hopeful that by
June next year.
by June of 23, we'll be able to go back. But at the same time, we have a wonderful sales shaping up. We've kept our sales, and our sales kept growing, even though we haven't been able to physically be there with our Chinese friends and partners. But we continue to hold the auctions, and with great success. And we fully expect this one to be another one.
Yeah. So the Chinese market is one area in particular that I think shot up more than any
for
other
sure.
area. I mean, it seemed like coins were doubling in value every couple of months,
Yes.
or maybe even
every
more
couple of
than that.
months. That's right. Yeah.
And so we had our last signature auction in Hong Kong in July, which saw some weakness in my mind relative to where the market was in December. And then there was a large sale by Stacks in October earlier this month, or early in October, that I think solidified that the market has sort of come back down to reality.
Mm-hmm.
But all that being said, it sort of goes back to my overall point, which is
Perspective.
Yeah, step back beyond just the past 12 or 18 months, and you'll see where things really are. So I think a good example of that is a birds over junk dollar. So Tommy, I sent you a link to this one to pull that up on the screen. But birds over junk dollar, I think this is a great gauge for the market because it's a popular type. It's a collectible type. There's enough that there's a lot of sales records. So we had this one sell in our autumn Hong Kong showcase auction, which we have two showcase auctions in Hong Kong that are kind of smaller than the signature sales in the off season. So we have one in the spring and fall, and then we have the Hong Kong signatures in the summer and winter. So we sold this one for $28,800 on October 2nd. So scroll down to the previous prices grid here, Tommy, and you'll see that it's loading. We've sold a lot of these in 63. So this one sold October 2nd for $28,800. You'll see the number of other 63 results we have there. So you can see that the market clearly peaked in June of 2021, where we had one in 63 sell for $37,200. However, as we're saying, take a step back and you'll see get a better perspective on the market, where even as recently as December 2018, this was a solid $8,000 coin. So I sent you another link to the results, Tommy, that maybe you can pull up beyond just the previous prices grid. But it was a $8,000 coin in December 2018, and then you step further back in December 2016. Yeah, this is it. So if you scroll down to the December 2018 results, you'll see, yeah, it's a solid $8,000 coin, and then December 2016, it was a solid $5,000 coin. So the fact that a 63 is selling for $28,800, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's as you can see how much Tommy has to scroll. It's not a particularly rare coin.
Right.
I mean, we have, if you guys know Warren Tucker that works with us, he tells the story. He used to bring rolls back from China, and these were, $50 to $75 coins back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So that speaks speaks to the demand for Chinese coins, and it's something that we have always expected from Chinese demand and Chinese buyers. But you're absolutely correct. I mean, during the 2021 period, we saw volatility in the Chinese market upwards that was unlike anything that we've seen before, even in the 2007, 8, and then again in 12 or 13. This one was quite sharp, and now obviously, and there's U.S. dollar. I mean, there's macro economic factors.
The Chinese coin market is kind of more closely tied to the overall Chinese economy
for sure
than other coin markets. And so when things were sort of firing on all cylinders last year, it shot up more than other coin markets did. But it's only natural then that it's going to come down a little harder than all the other markets as well.
Okay, excellent. And we have right now the team already building, of course, our next one.
Yeah.
Our next big one.
You mean January?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The next one after that. Yeah. So January, of course, New York International is a very traditional show that started a few decades ago. We've been one of the official auctioneers of that venue also for many, many years. We've been in a new venue for the last year or 2 years. Was it? We've been there.
We switched to the Grand Hyatt a few years ago.
And then now we're at the Barclay.
Yeah, we've only been there 1 year.
1
so
year.
far. Yeah.
So we're there. It's a very nice place, very nice facility, and it's a big congregation of coin collectors and dealers from all over the world. We're now with that we're over COVID, we have very high expectations for this event as far as attendance goes.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't been to a coin show, if you want to go to a coin show, I would say the New York International is
in the United States for sure.
Yeah, in the U.S. absolutely.
Yes.
And it's a really nice venue. I like this. Of the three venues I've been to the NYINC at for Heritage, the Waldorf, the Grand Hyatt, and the Barclay. I love the Barclay the best.
For sure. I agree.
It's the best of the three.
Yeah.
So as Cris mentioned earlier, in January we have 2 standalone collections already consigned to that, which is Cape Coral German Part 2 and Petropolis Part 3. One thing that I think is interesting to note and should be noted is that in our efforts to further reduce the size of the auctions and keep them manageable, we've raised the value minimums for this auction. Last year, the minimum was $7,500 hammer for platinum and $1,000 for signature. This year, we've raised it to $10,000 for platinum and $1,500 for signature. And by my estimation, that's going to be about a 15% reduction in lots, which I think, as I was saying earlier, everyone's going to appreciate because it's going to make the sale that much more kind of lean and digestible.
Curated.
Yeah, curated is a good word to use.
Excellent. So we'll have, just so everybody know, we have 3105 and 3106. We actually have 2 sale numbers for New York because they happen 8 days apart, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, 3105 is the special collections and platinum, and then 3106 is signature. So we can do lot viewing throughout the week for 3106, and then 3105 is actually held at the convention. One of the few remaining auctions that are held at a coin show.
That's right.
Okay. And then I guess we could talk about showcases for a little bit as well. That's something that I'm most excited about, I think, in terms of sort of our menu of auctions. Our showcase auctions make up less turnover than our signature auctions do, of course. But it's the area that has seen the biggest growth of all the different venues that we have. So these are numbers that I track pretty closely.
Let me interrupt.
Okay.
Before you give the numbers, explain what a showcase auction is.
Okay. And then we have a question that we'll get to in a moment. But so we basically have 3 tiers of auctions, the way I think about it. We have the signature auctions, which include the platinum sessions, which are the catalog auctions, the ones that sort of, I think most people know Heritage for. Those are the sort of what used to be the really big catalogs on the shelf that kind of shrunk a little bit. And then we have our weekly select auctions, we have ancient coins on Wednesday night, world coins on Thursday night. And then sort of in between there, we have showcase auctions, which run for 4 weeks and are either specialized collections or thematic sales. So like I was talking earlier about the modern coin showcases, we've added that through the showcase venue rather than create a sort of a signature or select auction. We've decided to do that as a showcase where it's open for 4 weeks and it's just specialized to only modern coins. But we've also had some other collections. We have a Brazilian showcase that's ending, I think this weekend.
The 6th, November 6th, yeah.
Then a lot of really cool things that have come through of I mentioned the historical scholar showcases, which are very academic things that I think warrant a little extra kind of attention than just spreading them out over 24 select auctions.
Yeah, and collectors are able to have their own event with their own banner, with their own sale number, dedicated, that is targeted, that we send opening announcements exclusively for. I mean, it's really an elegant format for a lot of our clients that can have their exclusive sales, and there's specific formats and specific type of collections that fit. But one thing that's worth saying is that it really, when you look at a lot in a showcase auction, when you look at a lot in a signature auction, if you're looking online, as 99.9% of the people are doing, you see basically no difference. You can't tell if this is a signature lot or a platinum night lot, or if it's a showcase lot. The images are there, the information is there, the cataloging, all the relevant information and data that we provide as far as population reports for the grading services and comparables like we've been looking at. These things and these tools are available across the board, no matter regardless of the value of the coin.
Right.
And this is a big win for us and for our audience, because it wasn't always like that. There was a time that a signature auction was better than these online venues, but that's no longer the case. That's
right. Yeah, and it allows us to keep these collections together. So I was talking briefly earlier about the value minimums for the January auction, just because there's a reality of the situation where we can only fit so many coins in one particular auction before either we run out of space to run them, or it just becomes too unwieldy. But for these showcase auctions, we can, if it's a specialized collection, we could put a $10,000 lot next to a $200 lot. If it's just this, we had a great French collection earlier this year that had a 6-figure lot in it, along with some just a lot's worth a few $100s.
And we can target the marketing so much better too. There was a question before, somebody asked about the price. I believe it was the price of gold.
Yeah.
How does that correlate to value of coins? And obviously, the less numismatic an item is, a coin is, the more it will affect. So if you have, a good example is common date sovereigns, for example, or $20 gold pieces. If they are standard conditions, those things are directly related to the value of gold, spot of gold. But I will say that in the last month or a couple of months, as gold dropped a little bit to the 1650s area, we have been seeing, and I talked to Doug Balico, who's the head of our gold room here, we have seen a significant increase in premiums for generic gold coins. Okay, so these sovereigns, these 20 francs from France or from Switzerland, and these other sort of what we consider bullion coins, are getting to premiums that were perhaps not seen in over a decade. And then once you get away from that, the effect is more, I believe, like more psychological than anything else. Because if you have a big numismatic coin like we had an Oona before that melts at $2,100, if it sells for $340,000, it doesn't make any difference what the gold content, or the gold price of the day is. So it does. I would say if gold drops, when it's dropping and when it's right, if it's going up or down, it might just affect the mood a little bit. But numismatic coins, in effect, there's not that much direct influence, I would say.
Yeah, I think saying that it's more psychological is a good way to put it, where, if the price of gold goes up and people suddenly want these coins that have a 10% premium over gold, and then, that sort of has a marginal effect on the coins that have a 20% premium and then the 40% premium. And there's sort of a cascading effect, but it becomes less and less the more valuable the coin is. But even for some coins that we consider, very common, like 1947 restrike 50 pesos.
Yes.
One of those in 65 still sells for like a 15% premium over melt, when,
it's crazy.
Yeah, 10 years ago, that was absolutely a melt coin.
Yes. Yeah. So we have another question. Let's see. What is the average notice given for upcoming auctions? Notice given. I'm not
So
sure.
I think they mean the consignment deadline.
Consignment deadline. Yeah, I would say usually 2 months out. Is that a good?
Yeah. So this, for example, the auction this week, the first auction session is November 2nd. The consignment deadline was, I think, the first week of September.
Right.
So it's about 2 months or so before the sale.
Yeah, if the coins are graded, of course, if they need to be graded and we need to be sent it out to certification, let's add two to 3 weeks to that. But essentially, the sooner the better is actually the right answer, because the sooner we get things, the sooner they're entered. And once items are entered into an auction, they automatically go up on preview. So people who have, people are looking on a daily basis. They have want lists that want to be filled. They have keywords that are entered. So whenever we enter the coin, which is what happens, if you send us your coin, we will process it. We will enter it into the appropriate auction, and that goes up on preview. So people are watching.
And then when it comes to the select auctions, what we try to do is enter it into an auction that will close 6 weeks from the time we receive it. So if it's an already graded coin, we receive it today, it'll be in an auction that closes 6 weeks from now. And then the settlement period is 45 days from that. So the overall turnaround time of the process is about 3 months, which relative to sort of the coin market, that's pretty fast.
Yes, for sure.
I think there was another question here.
Okay, something I'd like to add to the auction info is the story behind the collection. Sometimes I need to do research. Okay, that's a good question. Well, there are times that we can promote the backstory of a collection, and there are times that we cannot. In the case specifically of Paramount, it was a collection that was to remain, the owner was to remain anonymous. So we couldn't really tell a story, but we thought that sort of the coins told the story of the collection themselves, because it was such an incredible group of coins. You can view it on archives. There were over, I think there were over 100 multiple duck kits of Europe in there, so. Which is, it blows any numismatist's mind, that just the beauty and the quantity of it. But when we can tell a story, we're more than happy to.
And then, going back to, say, the showcase auctions where we have those specialized collections, something we've been trying to do more of really only over the last 6 to 12 months is to add a description of the collection on the auction homepage, which is a feature that we've had on the website for a long time, but we haven't really taken advantage of it. But you add a description of either the thematic auction or the specialized collection on the homepage, and it gives that sort of background. But as Cris was saying, sometimes for these really big collections like Paramount or Cape Coral, the collector chooses to remain anonymous, so we can only sort of describe the coins rather than the collector.
Serge asks about Russian Imperial coins. Has something changed after the starting of the sanctions? Yes and no, I guess. I mean, the market is still strong for Russian coins. We can still take consignments, obviously, of coins that are in the U.S.
Yeah.
There's a hiccup now with importation, which have become more difficult. So
in late July, the U.S. expanded sanctions on Russian materials to include numismatic items to a 35% import tariff on all coins of Russia. So even a coin that has been in a collection in London for 100 years, if it gets consigned to our London office, they can't ship it to the U.S. without it being subject to a 35% import tariff. So it's something similar to the tariffs on Chinese coins that I know we've talked about in the past, except the tariff on Chinese coins is 7.5%. The one on Russian coins is 35%. So it's fairly significant. There are ways we can work around that if we bring stuff in on a temporary import bond and then send it back to one of the international offices. But that kind of prevents us from bringing in lower value Russian coins, because there's just a lot more added bureaucracy to that.
Correct. And but the market internally, domestically, continues to be strong. I mean, we have some interesting Russian coins that are selling tomorrow, and the bidding
Yeah.
remains strong.
Then we have the next part of the Budinitsky collection that we'll be selling. We've sold the first couple of parts
In
already.
a showcase format,
Yeah,
right?
in the showcase. So the market is doing well for Russian coins. I think there was a brief period earlier in the year where there was a significant drop, but it's sort of come back up. But there are sort of new realities of international business that we have to respond to. So I think one thing that the point that I wanted to make earlier about showcase auctions is how that's a venue that's expanding pretty dramatically for us. So our prior best year ever for showcase auctions was in 2020, where we had 15 showcase sales realized just under $4 million, and we were thrilled with that. That was great. I mean, it's I remember pretty distinctly when we started the showcase format in early 2014. It was the Newman stuff that we sold as a monthly auction.
Yeah.
And then everyone else in the company said it was a terrible idea.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we got.
And now everybody's, we have showcases now across multiple categories. Basically, I would say basically in every category.
Yeah. Nearly every category has that now, but it was definitely swimming upstream in order for that to get traction. So anyway, in 2020, we had 15 showcase sales, realized just under $4 million. This year, 2022, we are on track to have 28 showcase auctions that should comfortably sell above $10 million. And so what we've added in the past year is more thematic sales open to multiple consigners.
Right.
So it used to be that our showcase auctions were just kind of single owner specialized collections, but now we've added the modern coin showcases, which is open to everyone. We have the Brazilian showcase that's open to other collectors of Brazilian coins.
We had a Mexican one.
The Mexican showcase. Currently open for bidding, we have World Metals and Tokens, which is our first one of those, which I'm curious to see how it is, because we may end up doing more of them if it's successful.
Sure.
But yeah, that's great. And as I was saying earlier, the one I'm most excited about is the Modern Coin Showcase, which we're having every month now. We started quarterly. We had it in winter, spring, and summer. And then in September, we just switched to moving it every month. And so we had one end just this past Sunday, where it was about 300 lots sell for, I think, 650,000, something like that. I'm not sure I wrote the number down, but we added it we turned it into a monthly event to help with turnover and help people, with modern coins, it's kind of quickly that you get them onto the market soon before sort of the next issue comes out from the mint. And so having them more frequently, I think, helped a lot of our bidders and consigners. And so one point that we made earlier that I think we can dive into a little bit more is that a lot of professionals in our business, and we were guilty of this as well up until very recently, kind of thought of modern coins as kind of lesser, like they weren't as good, whatever that means, as older coins, vintage numismatic coins. And the reality is, as I was saying earlier, is it's a great entry point for new collectors. And there's actually a lot of modern coins.
Beautiful coins.
They're beautiful coins with big premiums.
Yeah.
So, Tommy, I think I sent you a link to one Australian coin that is worth taking a look at. Yeah, this 2016 2-ounce gold coin. And a few years ago, we absolutely would have just considered this to be a melt coin.
Correct.
Like it was worth 2 ounces of gold, that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe someone was willing to pay 5% over melt. But if it sold for $6,600, nearly double the melt value in the auction just this past Sunday. And so I think that's absolutely wonderful, that there is this market and that we are sort of adjusting our sales format to reflect that, there is a serious community of collectors for this material that shouldn't be ignored. So,
excellent.
Yeah, I think that covers it for sort of the general outline that I had.
Tommy, do we have any more questions that have popped up? Can anyone register to bid? Yes, you can register to bid. If you're brand new to us, you need to include your credit card in your application, but it's very quick. and you can start bidding. We considering all the auction companies out there, we are significantly more friendly in accepting new bidders. And if you're new and you sign up to the website and you just want to send Sam and I a note and say, hey, I watched you guys, I just signed up to the website, and say hello, be happy to talk to you about anything that's coming up or any questions that you may have.
Yeah. So the other thing I'd say about registering for the website, so there's sort of two levels of registration. There's fully registered, where you add the credit card info and you get approved to bid, but then you can just create a quick free account just to get access to the archives.
To the information.
Which
right.
I think is something that a lot of companies in the auction space don't really take as seriously as they should.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that, in terms of the heritage philosophy, we embraced decades ago, where
Yes.
we wanted to put all the information out there to make it as easy as possible for people to do research and make informed, confident bidding decisions.
Yeah,
so,
even if you're bidding in any auction anywhere in the world, you can come to our website and do research on the archives that has relevant information dating back decades now.
Yeah.
And you can help you make accurate, relevant, and decisive bidding decisions, not only when you're bidding with us, but when you're bidding with someone else. And like you said, in this case, with a soft registration on the website, you have access to this tremendous amount of information, which my generation and generation before me used to hold tight to the chest as a competitive advantage. And now, Jim Halpern had this idea of making it public, which is, now it seems quite obvious, but back then it wasn't. So anybody can come. All the information is there to be shared and available to everyone.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
So.
Well, I guess if there's no more questions, we can just give our email addresses. And as Cris was saying, you can send us an email if you want. Tommy just put it up on the
even
bottom.
Easier.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tommy.
So any questions either about upcoming auctions or lots or the market in general, feel free to get in touch with one of us, and we're more than happy to help. And then hopefully,
and always accepting consignments. I
Yeah.
mean, we have all these venues that we described here, obviously. So we will have the right one for you and for your coins.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So
Until
we'll see
next
everyone
time.
later.
Yeah.